Welcome everyone to Lagoon Cleanout by Wessuc in our Why Wessuc webinar series. Thank you everyone for joining. My name is Lauren McCallum, Regional Sales Manager for East on the cleanout side. As passionate stewards of our world, Wessuc champions healthy soils, clean water, which is another way we care about where we live and for our grandchildren in the future. Our speakers today are myself, Brett Stiles, who's the Western Regional Sales Manager for Cleanouts, Rob Mills, who's our Environmental Coordinator. We also have our marketing team of Mel and Juliana in the background, making us look good, keeping us out of trouble. They'll also be looking after the Q&A panel to help us out as we go. Before I pass things on to our speakers, just a few housekeeping notes. You, our audience, are in listen-only mode, meaning you're on mute. We cannot hear you. Please enter any comments, questions, concerns in the Q&A, and we and our marketing team do our best to stay on top of those for you. We appreciate if you spread the word using hashtag #WhyWessucWebinar on all your social media platforms. Before we move on to the agenda for today, here's a nice breaking poll for you to do. A question will pop up on the screen, and if you choose, you can answer it. All answers are anonymous, and this is a very serious question. And sometimes technical things happen, so Mel and Juliana are working on this, but we're excited to have, well, right now we got about 35 people online, which is great. Slide, Mel?
Yep, we're all good, Lauren. And you may not be seeing it on your end there, but we had about almost 60% of our attendees say, yes, obviously, a hot dog is a sandwich.
Excellent, excellent. So we'll carry on to our agenda. Today is simple. We've introduced ourselves. Then why clean out lagoons, our methods to do so. Rob will talk about the beneficial reuse and some technical parts, and we'll end today's with a Q&A after the presentation. However, feel free to enter any questions as you go. So, who is Wessuc? Well, some of you, or many of you, I've met in the past, and I'm always asked, how do you say it? Is it Wessuc? But you all want to know, is it we suck? We'll answer to each one. They both work. But back in April 2000, two energetic young brothers, after their father had been in the industry many years, broke out and formed Wessuc, or We Suck. We're privately owned, about 115 and growing employees. We focus on environmental reuse. We're passionate stewards, as I said earlier. We work with respect, responsibility, joy, and balance. So, Wessuc Safety, something we all are accountable to ourselves, but more importantly, each other. When we're in the field, when we're looking at jobs, when we're setting up jobs, we need to make sure that each one of us gets home to our family each and every day. And we work hard at that as a team and as a family. We are core certified, so there's a lot of documentation that we follow and keeps us accountable within the government and the industry. But the most accountability we have is to each other, that we work safely and get home to our families each day. So why clean out a lagoon? Many of you have asked me in the past, can we, how do we, why do we do it? the biggest thing is efficiency. You need to, when you have your lagoons, you have them for a reason, to have that resource capable of holding a liquid volume that you're looking to do for whether it's stormwater, biosolids, or other items. But it gets to a certain point where the solids build up and you can't put any more in. So you need to find a beneficial reuse for it. And you need to keep your neighbors happy by keeping the odors down as well. So the lagoon cycle is here in this diagram. The maintenance of it, you put things in, some of it evaporates, solids build up, and then you want to know what's happening with your lagoon. Well, we have methods of doing an evaluation, a clean out, haulage of the material, land apply, or finding a beneficial reuse, which then brings you back to maximum storage of your lagoon resource. Now I'd like to welcome Brett, my colleague, who's going to talk about different methods of cleaning. On to you, Brett.
Thanks, Lauren. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for taking time out of your day to join us today. As Lauren mentioned, I'm going to discuss a couple little methods that we use to clean out the lagoons. One is obviously using our noon crawler, and the other one is dredging. Now, if you don't mind going to the next screen, we have a short clip on our lagoon crawler for you to see it in action. So the lagoon crawler is an amphibious remote-controlled machine. It's used to mix and agitate the lagoons. We can actually pump directly from the crawler directly into tankers as well. But primarily it is used for the mixing and agitating so that it can remove heavy solids and push it over towards more of a lagoon pump, which then will load up the tanker. The other method we use is a dredging method. It's where we actually use tractors, farm tractors with excuse me, a scraper on it, where we'll actually go into the lagoon. It's scraped up. We push all the material to a bigger pile, where it's then sucked out or pumped out and into tankers and hauled away as well, whether it be land applied or stored, depending on the time of year that it was the lagoon is being cleaned out. I'd like to take this opportunity and now welcome Robert Mills, our environmental coordinator, to discuss our beneficial reuse program, the alternative disposal methods, and our evaluation process. Over to you, Rob.
Thanks, Brett. So the main purpose of everything we do at Wessuc is to provide more material you can spread on fields. So the term beneficial use is set out, unfortunately, by the ministry, as it always is. So basically anything that we can put on the field is regulated. We test for heavy metals, phosphorus, potassium, nitrogen, and if it's all reaches within that one or two spectrum, if it either passes or doesn't pass, that depends if we can spread it onto fields. If we can't go spread onto fields, Wessuc has been spread out into alternative disposals, such as incinerators, AD units. So at the end of the day, we're always getting, even if it's not through us personally, third parties getting something like, free energy out of it, and then they can go on to explain more stuff with that. Go to the next slide now. So what's inside your lagoon? So we work out what's inside the lagoon by various means. If you're not keeping track of it day to day, sometimes we have clients who haven't spread anything in 5 years, 10 years. We've had a couple of clients who haven't spread anything in 30 years. So they don't really know how much is in there. So the most beneficial way we can do it is through sludge judging. The picture on the top right is of a sludge judge. And we use a sludge judge by going into these areas, normally on a boat. We measure how deep it is. And from there, we can judge how much sludge, believe it or not, with the sludge judge, is left in the lagoons and how much would need to be emptied to bring it up to either, get rid of the freeboard level, or we can bring it down to the point of where you can still proceed in your daily operations. Here's just a short clip of two of our guys. We were sampling for the sludge to see how deep it was. This current client wanted us to put in metal rods into the lagoon. So we mark where we took it with GPS after we map out an area. But this particular client wanted us to put in these metal bars so you could see where we took it from. And then the guy at the back there is just taking a sludge judge. So he puts it in, and then if from there you can tell and record of how much sludge is in there. And it's just the process again for us. Thanks, Mel. So the sludge judging, after you work out how deep it is, we normally take a sample. And if a sample is needed, we test for the 11 regulated metals, E. coli, nitrogen, ammonia, and potassium and phosphorus. So this slide's just showing us the kind of breakdown you can get from sludge depending on the volume. They do vary on material to material, but here's just a general view of sort of representation of what sort of reusable stuff could be applied to the fields. So we've got nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus, and that sort of stuff is what the farmers look for. Before we can spread it, the farmers get shown, and from there they can decide if they want to take it. And the best thing for them of all is it's free for them. They get free fertilizer, and especially in this year with fertilizer prices going through the roof, we'll be seeing a lot more, hopefully. And now I'd like to I'd like to bring everyone back to join me on the screen for this time, and we'll be happy to take any questions after this quick poll.
So I think we're having some technical difficulties with the poll here, guys. I'm sorry. A few looks like we did get some results through, so I'm not sure if everyone can see this. But the question was, do you know the current solid content or volume in your lagoon? And up to 50% of people have said no. So 50% of our audience today, which is currently 40 people on the call, and that's 12 votes in total, have said no, they're not sure what the volume or content of their lagoon is. So with that, like Rob said, we're happy to take on any questions. And yeah, if you want to type those in your Q&A section there, I see there's a few questions that have come through. We'll start taking those.
So I'll take this first question, team. How do you decide which method of cleaning to use? So it varies by lagoon. What is the access like? What is the makeup of the barrier? Is it clay? Is it membrane? We have one I know of that's a concrete lagoon. So it all depends on how we can get access to the lagoon and which is safest method to remove the material, either through the pumps, the dredging, or the crawler. So we look at what's best for the client, what's best for the lagoon, and then we make arrangements accordingly. There are a lot of questions coming through. This is good. Rob, I'll let you take the next one.
Sure. So the question is, how often should lagoons typically be emptied out? It really depends on your size of operation. If you've got 10,000 cubes and you're putting in 250 cubes a day, it's going to be a while. But it depends on the size. If it's bigger, if it's smaller, if you have more volume going in and out, if you have any processing, mixing, or microbes in there, it all depends how much, how early or how long you can wait before it has to get cleaned out. Typically, your lagoon, the main problem is freeboard. So it's how much space, or how much water, sorry, is between the surface of the water and the top of the sludge. That's set up by the ministry. If you're accumulating a lot of material really quick, I say really quick, not as in like, a few days, it's normally 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, then that's the sort of, that's how typically you should clean it. Not before you reach your freeboard minimum, but on that build up to it, at least getting the sort of stepping stones in the process to prove to the ministry that, hey, we are actually looking after this and it's not just a big fancy hole in the ground, essentially.
And I think the next question, Rob, ties into that answer, I believe. What would you say?
How do we decide if cleaning is required? I think, yeah, it's mostly set out by your by the ministry of how much freeboard you get. If you have any odor complaints, typically around winter, you have a set amount of storage because you know how much is going in, and you want to have enough. If you don't have enough storage, or you've been having a lot of issues, or discharge rates have been too high and you're getting fined by the ministry, that's normally another sign of how you should go forward and get it cleaned out.
Rob, the next question interests me because I currently have 2 lagoons north of Thunder Bay and in the James Bay area that I've been working with a client for a solution. And there are certain places that have a lot of bedrock or have a lot of rock base where we cannot spread this material because of it leaching where we don't want it. We always spread in a controlled environment. So when we talked about beneficial reuse, especially in the North Ontario, and in this question, Northwest Ontario, 4 hours west of Thunder Bay, you probably fall into that heavy rock area where we couldn't spread. So we would dewater the material in that case and find a new home for beneficial reuse. Today, landfills are still required to cap if that was a requirement. If there was a location where we could use the dewatered material to return the earth that they've lost through winds and storms, that could be an option. But again, I'd work with Rob, who would tell me, yes, it can go here or here, because he's the science part of our team, and with the client, which best is economical and works for them. Brad, I'll let you take the next one.
Has anyone fallen out of the boat? Not to my recollection. But I've only been with the company for 2 years now, so if anything happened before me coming aboard, that would I definitely haven't heard any stories on it though. Great question though. Rob, I think the next question for you: when testing for sludge quality for NASM application, are there standards for the nutrient parameters?
Yeah, so very stringent standards actually. So we have to not only meet a minimum beneficial. So if it's a liquid, it's 140 milligrams per liter of nutrients. So that can be a combination of nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, and nitrogen again. And if it doesn't meet that minimum per liter, then we can't use it. A lot of the stuff we've been getting is, if the minimum is 140, we're sitting at like 200-300, a couple of thousand maybe. And not only that, but we are regulated to a maximum amount of heavy metals, E. coli, and a lot of other stuff like that. So when it comes to a minimum standard, not only are we making sure it is, but the MECP, OMAFRA, they set out these very stringent requirements for us to pass. So there's never anything, fishy going on or anything like that.
So I'll take the next one. Can a client provide their own results of a sludge judge, for example, from a sonar test? Yes, a client and clients have provided those to us in the past. Sometimes what we find with a sonar test is if sludge is built up and hardened somewhat over a long period of time, it shows a false bottom. where the sludge judge can break through that and get you a true bottom. So that's the only difference between the two. And we have used clients provided materials or testing with the sonar. And however, our method to get a true volume that works is through the sludge judge evaluation. Brett, you.
Yeah, I'll take the next one here. How do you determine the tipping fee for the product I'm looking to get rid of? Great question. So a lot of it just comes down to, obviously, is what are the percent solids? How much material is in there? Are you looking for a pure clean out or just a maintenance program where you're basically looking to just get some capacity back in the lagoon? Then again, it also comes down to the fact of, is the material meet beneficial use? So it could go to a farmer's field. So there's a lot of things that determine the tipping fee. Obviously, the last thing we want to do is take it to a landfill, even though it is being used for ground cover. We do want to put that on the material onto a farm field if at all possible. Rob, I'll send you the next one here. What is the maximum amount of sludge percentage of a lagoon capacity or sludge depth allowed in a lagoon? It is also impacted by odor issues.
So it's hard to say. Every case is different. A lot of the times you are set out by that freeboard again that I mentioned. So if you've got, let's say, well, our own lagoons, we're allowed 16,500 cubes per lagoon, and our freeboard depth minimum, is 30 centimeters. So we can, if we wanted to, fill that right up until that 30 centimeter mark, and then that's it. You can't have any more in it. The closer you get to the surface, like the more sludge you have, there is possible you will get more odor issues. But if you've got that good amount of freeboard that's set out by your either ECA or NASM plan, then odor is normally pretty mitigated, unless you're, a lot of the time the odor is caught by the wind. So if there's no trees or anything around, it can get caught up in the spray of the wind. But other than that, it's mostly for the freeboard.
Thanks, Rob. So what is the approximate cost? Well, it depends on access to the lagoon, depends on the size of the lagoon, the depth of the lagoon will deter. All these things will determine. It's not a cookie cutter answer. And I've been asked by our own management, can I just, say $5,000 or $10,000 or whatever? And I've had low costs because we're in and out in a half a day. And I've had high costs because it's taken us 4 days. So it all depends on the size of the lagoon. But if you reached out to Brett or myself, we can do it fairly quickly in providing you a budget number for that service.
Last question we have here so far is how much to clean a heavily loaded 20-acre lagoon for the boys? Again, as Lauren said, looks like it's a pretty large size lagoon. It will all depend on, obviously, the percent solids, how much material is in there. Do we have to mix and agitate? Can it just be pumped directly out? Are you, going right straight down to the liner? So a lot of different elements that come into play with regards to cleaning out the lagoons. So that would be basically a conversation we would definitely take offline, and I can reach out to you directly to start that process if you like. Looks like all of our questions are done. So thanks everyone for the great questions. I really want to thank everybody today for their time and taking time out of their busy day. We realize that your time is valuable, and taking the time to spend it with us today. We'd also like to, if you could participate in our post-webinar survey, that'd be greatly appreciated. The survey will pop up automatically to your screen when you close the webinar window. Everyone who is registered will receive a follow-up email with today's recording as well. Thanks to Lauren, Rob, for joining me on this webinar today, and for to Mel and Juliana in the background, as Lauren said at the beginning, making us look good. So we really appreciate everybody's time today.
Thank you, everyone.
Guys.
Everybody.